All right, you guys get a short video tonight because I ended up falling asleep and taking a long nap. Oops. So quite some time ago, I got turned on to a book by a friend of mine who actually is a political candidate, as a matter of fact, running for political office here in New York, in central New York. And the book is by George Lakoff. It's called The Political Mind. And I started the book. This was during, I want to say it was during the 2016 election or shortly after the 2016 election. I was profoundly frustrated with the state of political affairs and what was going on in the country, especially after 2016. I was really at the edge of being able to understand why politics in the United States were the way they are. And I was told that George Lakoff in general, and specifically in the book, The Political Mind, talks in on that subject. So for tonight, I just want to touch on that book and the fact that I'm reading it now, finally. The first time I think I got decently into the second chapter, and then I put the book down for who knows what reason and never picked it up again. In the process, I've read probably 30 or 40 books since then, but however, I never did finish that, and I'm back in it now. So this right here is The Political Mind. If you've ever come across this book, and it's the subtitle, Why You Can't Understand 21st American Politics with an 18th Century Brain. So again, I'm only the very beginning of it, but I'm going to touch on this throughout my time reading it here on the daily podcast of the Daily Octane. However, I also have a short night tonight because I got up this morning and I went down to the Onondaga Lake Parkway, the West Shore Trail here in Syracuse, and decided in plus 90 heat, I want to say it was like 93 or so, I decided to go run 6 miles. I did not make it 6 miles. I made it about 4. And then I walked the rest of the way because it was supremely hot. And for anybody that knows me outside of this podcast, I am not exactly a thin guy. I'm not fat by any stretch, but I am not a thin guy. But my shirt was off. And I was running in that heat without my shirt on. And then following that, I had to come back to my office and I did several hours of massage today. And by the time that was done, all I wanted to do was eat something and take a nap. That nap turned into a nearly 3-hour nap. So I guess we could call that early sleep. And now I'm awake and I will be addressing the fact that I probably won't fall asleep again until well after midnight. So I think I'm going to go make a smoothie after this and then possibly watch some TV. But anyway, The Political Mind. I am just through the first chapter again. I decided to start the book completely over. And a couple of things that are profound for me that he touches on right away. And really what is the crux of my political issue that I have. This is in politics in general, primarily here in the United States, is the idea that within our two-party system, Democrats and Republicans, right? Within our two-party system, the Democrats are made up of what he addresses and what many of us call left-leaning people, progressives. But, and I'll get into this at another time, but Lakoff also talks about the fact that the idea of left versus right is what creates a lot of our divide that we have, and not in a good way. But what frustrates me is that the left, or the liberals, or the Democrats, or the progressives, these groups, these groupings we put people in, they share my ideals. Not all of my ideals. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I argue with many of my progressive friends on is my stance on guns. And while I'm not a redneck gun-toting, range-going person, I'm a prior United States Marine. I have a fairly what you may even consider pro-gun law or pro-gun stance as far as how the laws go. I'm 100% for absolutely enriching and reinforcing and expanding our background checks. I'm absolutely against 30-round clips. I'm absolutely against bump stocks and automatic weapons and all this kind of stuff, right? I think AR-15s are wholly unnecessary. However, I am for the holding on of the Second Amendment. I am for everybody having a right to own a firearm, to protect themselves, to hunt. I am not one of these whack nuts on the right that thinks that someday we're going to have to overthrow our government, because unfortunately we live in a type of modern society in which that's not possible. But I digress. I'm way off my subject here. But so I generally share my political leanings and my outlook on the political world with the left, the progressives, the liberals, the Democrats, big D Democrats. The Republicans, however, in my mind, now, if you are a Republican watching this, I'm not speaking specifically for you. I am talking about you, but I'm not speaking specifically for you. The Republicans, in my mind, fall into, say, two camps. They are those people who do not agree with the things that I believe in. And they are those people, the second group, are those people who agree with most of what I believe in, but have gotten tricked into siding with that party. What do you mean, Chris? I don't understand. Well, all right, there are people out there that are, maybe they're religious nuts, or maybe they're not, and they just are anti-abortion, right? So there's a group of people out there that are anti-abortion. Let's say there's a group out there that are super, super pro-guns. There's a group out there that are super, super pro-guns. Let's say there's a group out there that are absolutely anti-tax. They are absolutely anti-federal government. Let's say they're absolutely anti-socialism whatsoever. That's another group. Let's say there's another group that's super pro-military industrial complex. Let's say there's another group that's super pro-pharmaceuticals, right? So these are all different ideas. These are different concepts in which people on the other side of the aisle do not share the same belief structure that I share about those specific things. But then you have a gamut of other issues. So there is most likely a person out there who is anti-abortion, who is absolutely pro-gay rights, absolutely pro, Second Amendment, but let's expand background checks. They're absolutely pro universal healthcare, pro universal education, but they're just anti-abortion. That's their hotbed issue. That's the one thing that time and time and time again forces them to vote Republican. My biggest concern, as I have been more and more involved in politics over the last several years, both directly either in campaigns or supporting campaigns, or having a girlfriend who works in campaigns and political office, the one thing that continues to frustrate me the most, without a shadow of a doubt, is how many people out there vote against their absolute best interest. Now, in Lakoff's book, a little bit in the first chapter, he touches on this, but he touches on it through the prism of the psychology of politics. The fact that for the better part now, because that book is nearly 12 years old, for the better part of over 40 years, going on 50 years, the Republicans in the United States have had think tanks all over the country, several of them, huge organizations that have billions of dollars in political funding money coming from PACs and major donors, whose only job is to hire philosophers, psychologists, linguists, and marketing people to come up with creative ways to use language to convince people to vote against their best interest. Now think about that. Are you a Republican voter? Do you fall into one of those camps that I was talking about earlier? This idea that, no matter what, don't take my guns away. Are you that person? There's a lot of you guys up here in upstate New York. Are you one of those people that no matter what, I don't care what happens, I won't vote for a Democrat because you're not taking my guns away, damn King Cuomo and blah, 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 right? If you're one of those people and you continue over and over again to vote Republican because you are afraid that the big bad blue boogeyman is going to come take your guns, you might fall into this category. There are people out there, I have talked to them myself. There are people out there that are low middle class, perhaps even fluttering on the poverty line, that have been taught and tricked into believing that their biggest enemy in society today are people collecting welfare. And think about that. I've got family members. People that I love, that I speak to. And when you talk about disenfranchisement and gerrymandering and, taxation of the wealthy and all these things, their biggest enemies still are people collecting welfare. They don't get into or don't even want to hear about how large our military-industrial complex is, how large tax breaks are for people in the top 1% of our income brackets. They don't want to hear about how the reduction of the tax rate for the average American, even never mind just the wealthy, but the average American in general, how it has plummeted over the last 100 years, and why that has led to shortfalls in programs that were meant to help people. Those programs, for example, when we talk about programs that are there to help people to keep themselves from falling into an economic pit, whether it's Medicaid, whether it's HEAP for your heating and air, for your power, whether it's WIC, these programs that are designed to keep people from falling down through the bottom. What word do they use for those? The right has made you believe that they should be called entitlements. Lakoff goes into this in his book about the language of politics and why it is being used to systematically make people vote against their best interests, and how they make their candidates fall into archetypes that people feel a connection to the people that they're voting for and thus vote for them. It's a fantastic read. So anyway, over the next several days, as I'm reading this book, or maybe even weeks, because sometimes it can take me a while to get through an entire book, I'm going to touch on some of the topics that he talks about in here and just give, my opinion of them. And maybe I'll even hone in more deeply on the opinion that I have on some of these things. But, already in the first chapter, it's really lit up my brain sensor as to why we ended up with Bush Jr. several years ago. And more importantly, and he wrote about this more than a decade before or almost a decade before we ended up with Trump, and how we got this way. So great read. If you haven't read it, get to it. Also, there's another book here that I want to get to down the road. Helps if I grab the right mouse when I'm talking. But this is the one that my girlfriend's told me about several times right here. Don't Think of an Elephant. So I'm gonna probably, because this is what I do, is I find an author that I like and I read every single thing they ever put out. I did that with Malcolm Gladwell, by the way. I'm a huge Malcolm Gladwell fan. Maybe I'll talk about him sometime down the road. So anyway, thank you once again, as always, for watching the Daily Octane today. If you have found me on Facebook, please make sure you like the page. If you follow me on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Click on that notification bell, too, so that you get a message every day when the Daily Octane is ready to go live. Like this video if you liked what I have to say. Have you read the book? Comment down below. Let me know if you've read that book, or shit, let me know if you think I'm an utter moron. Sorry the video is getting out late tonight. For those that are always waiting right on the edge of their seat for the Daily Octane to come out, Mark, my partner in crime over at the Gentleman of the Jerk, he actually messaged me as I was beginning to record this. So it's here, it's up, it's coming. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful night, and I'll see you on tomorrow's episode of the Daily Octane.